All right. And so before we get started, again, this grant writing technique workshop is really brought to you as a capacity building opportunity through the funds, the Massachusetts Health and Healthy Aging Fund. And this is a collaboration and partnership with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, as well as the Executive Office of Elder Affairs and HRIA. And so in January of 2017, there was a revision to the Determination of Needs program, which led to the creation of the fund. And so what happens is healthcare facilities who have capital improvement work or project going on apply through this Determination of Needs fund through the state. And a percentage of the overall cost of the project is then invested into the funds, and then we distribute the funds as fiscal agents throughout the state of Massachusetts. Next slide, please. And so we also have a funding opportunity that came out in May 9th, and essentially the funding, what we have here is just an at a glance of the funding opportunity that we have. It's to write a grant proposal related to policy system environmental changes with the funding cap, the funding range for that particular program being at $50,000 to $200,000 up to 5 years, as well as a CHIP planning process with the funding amount from $10,000 to $75,000 up to 5 year, and the healthy aging from $10,000 to $100,000 up to 5 years as well. This grant is open to any Massachusetts-based nonprofit with a 501c3 status, or any organization with a 501c3 status that can be a fiscal sponsor to them, any quasi-governmental organization, and municipalities are also encouraged to apply. And really, again, the eligible activities, it's really community-centered approaches to address health inequities, and to improve population health outcomes, and really utilizing and thinking about the deep root causes of a lot of these health inequities. And the deadline for that particular grant is on June 17th, 2022. And if you have any additional questions, you can contact us, and we'll have the contact information and the website, which is listed here at the end as well, so that you can share that information. But we will also share that website, the website, as well as the email in the chat as well. All right. So now we will get started with our grant writing techniques 101. Next slide, please. And so I have two additional colleagues on the line with us as well. I just want to mention their name is Chen, as well as Emily, who are going to be in the chat as well and kind of running through this process. But before we get started, I just wanted to share a little bit. So for myself, prior to coming to HRIA, I worked in a lot of nonprofit organizations where we applied for a lot of grants. I didn't have grant writers in those situations. So I became a grant writer by way of really needing to get some funds into the organization. So some of the tips I will be sharing with you is from that perspective. And my colleague Jen will share a little bit about her background as well, and just kind of the perspective that she's coming to as in helping us in walking through this process today. So the first piece with really engaging in the grant writing process is planning. Planning is key. It's foundational to trying to getting started with the grant. And so the basis here for us is really checking what your funding eligibility checklist, and really creating a process where you are ensuring that you're reviewing the grant carefully from beginning to end. And at this point, what you're doing is you're writing down any questions that you may have as you're reviewing the eligibility. You want to check the criteria to, identify any questions that you might have, to know what the deadlines are that you may need to meet, as well as to understand how you want to submit this grant, how you were asked to submit the grant, and then to review things like the templates, the work plans, the budgets, and the evaluation in advance. And part of the reason for that is in the realm of eligibility, some grants, they require very specific things. So they may ask you, they want to see proof of your 501c3 status. So do you know where those items are? Do you have them on hand? Do you need to go to someone else to find that information? Your business's EIN. In some cases, and in particular with some federal grants, they have specific registries that they need you to register in to check for if your organization is even eligible to apply for this grant. So it's really important to have all these items on hand prior to jumping into the grant writing process. The other piece too is checking out deadlines. There's the grant deadlines, and then other times too, there are deadlines for letters of intent. So in some grants, in some circumstances, they do require that you putting a letter prior to even applying for the application saying that, yes, you are interested. And so if you miss that deadline, essentially, you're not able to apply for this grant. So you want to make sure that you understand all the deadlines that are on the application as well. Do you need recommendation letters? Sometimes we think about these things and we're like, oh, I'll get it in the end. But what happens is sometimes you then are in a situation where it's the grant's due on Friday, and on Thursday you're running around trying to ask your partners, can I have a letter? Can I have a letter? And they're saying, well, so-and-so's on vacation, or, well, if you write the letter, I'll give it to you. And so those are very key, important things at time that can really knock you out of the opportunity to even have your application reviewed because you've missed some of those specific steps. And then the other piece too is really that understanding, how are you submitting your grant? Because some places they require that you register through a portal. And so, and there's specific information that they're asking and registering into that in order to get access to that portal. So you've written a great grant and you're excited about it, but something's wrong with the portal. You're not able to register, and then the deadline that's looming comes along and kind of takes you out of the running. And lastly, too, the templates and paying attention to those things. Sometimes those are an afterthought, but again, you've written your grant. Next thing you know, you're looking at a budget plan and you're like, I have no idea what to do with this budget plan, how to fill it out. Or I have no idea what this work plan is asking me whatsoever. Evaluation, what do I have to do with that? Now I need to think about metrics. I need to think about outcomes and impacts and things of that nature. So it's really important to review all of those items, write some questions as you're going along through the application process, and utilize that to really start figuring out, is this someplace that is this an opportunity that I can move forward with? And if you've done all of that, and you're like, okay, I have all this information, I know what the next steps are, then we can kind of move into the next piece as well. So next slide, please. Planning continued. So we're going to go through 3 slides of planning alone, because again, planning is foundational to all of the work in submitting a grant. So now the other piece is really getting to know the RFP and take the time to review the questions. Do you understand what the questions are that's being asked of you? What questions does it generate for you? So now you may have read something and you think you got it, but then you read a little deeper and you're like, I'm not quite sure what this question is or what exactly that they're asking. what does this mean? And so it's really that opportunity then to start writing some of those questions down, as I mentioned in the previous slide. The other piece too is, if there are the opportunities to attend any funding announcement, meetings or webinars, take that opportunity, especially when they have the live funding announcements or meetings, because that's an opportunity for you to have someone there and to try to pose your questions and to have them answered, hopefully in real time, in order to kind of help you through your process. The other piece too is just making sure that if wherever possible, you're able to get onto the grant website, read through the FAQs and find out any other information that you might have. Sometimes certain grants will have specific literature, research, or things of that nature that they're requiring for you to utilize in some instances, or that will just better inform your grant making process or opportunity. So you definitely want to take the time to see review some of those items too. And you'll also see opportunities where there are FAQs that questions that you didn't even think about and somebody else asked. And so that's a part of helping you to better understand a question, or maybe there's a question you thought you answered, but you didn't answer it completely, or the way that it was intended to be answered in the RFP. And finally, you're looking for letters of recommendations. Do you need those? And so starting to think about the who, the what, the when, and if there are any specific criteria related to letter of recommendations on how the funder is asking for it to go. Next slide, please. And this is the final planning stage slide. It's really thinking about, is this grant opportunity the right fit for you, or the right one for your organization? And so that's another opportunity for you to then kind of take an inventory of your organization. So you've done the pre-work, you have all the items that you need. You've attended the sessions and you have a sense of a bit more about what this grant application is. So now I'm just trying to figure out what is our capacity and how do I move forward here. And so a couple of things to keep in mind is, will this funding amount make an impact for your organization? Is it seed funding or is it longer term investment? So sometimes we might get a grant and it's for $10,000. And, one might say, is this a grant that I really want to go out for? Is it something that can help me as a launching pad to go after additional dollars? Or, is it going to help serve a need that my organization needs right now for the moment in order for us to kind of do the work that we want to do? Or is this funding something that's longer term that really might change or really have big impact on some of the things that we are looking to do? So these are some of the considerations that you want to think along the lines of. The other piece is, would this funding support or bolster your organization's staffing and infrastructure at this time? So if you're looking to hire on or get more staff members, will it allow for that to do that? Will it do that for your organization? Or the other piece to it is this work that they're asking you to do something that's going to require more staff? But this grant opportunity may not necessarily help fund those staffing. So what's my capacity now? What do I need in order to make sure that I'm executing and implementing this? The other piece too is, will it address the needs of your population that you're serving? So you're writing the grant, not necessarily to say, this is what my organization needs, but really, how will it impact the community, the population, the people that we work with and serve? oftentimes, unless if it's a grant that's specifically asking for you to share the needs of the organizations. Generally speaking, this is the way that they're looking for. And so you really have to think about, how is this going to impact the folks that we serve? Does it align with your organization's mission and core? Because oftentimes you think about, oh, this is a great opportunity for us, but does it align necessarily with the mission of your organization? Is it something that you can continue to do? Will it cause, sometimes people talk about mission drift if we go into this opportunity, as well as thinking about, are there partners that we may need to bring to the table to accomplish this goal of this grant opportunity? So I may not have all the parts to this grant, but I may also work with another organization that has another component that's really vital. And we can come together and pull our resources together and write this grant as a great opportunities to collaborate and get this funding opportunity. And lastly, too, is how can you engage stakeholder and client that you serve? Sometimes that tends to happen at once someone's gotten a grant opportunity and bringing people to the table. But it's something to be considered as well, as bringing folks to the table who have that lived experience, who can share some ideas, thoughts of ways in which to bolster the grant opportunity that you're writing. And with that being said, I will pass it over to my colleague, Jen.
Thanks, Albiette, and hi again, everyone. Just to give you some further context, just as Albiette did herself before she kicked off, I've been fortunate to work in philanthropy for a good portion of my career. I worked at a foundation in Massachusetts for a little over a decade before arriving at HRIA. And here at HRIA, I have the opportunity to work with this incredible team here to further that work. We such as for these funds, we serve as a grant making intermediary. So we work with a number of clients and partners that have some form of funding to give out, and we help them disseminate those funds to really meet their mission and goals. And so I'm bringing all of that purview here in hopes of relaying the next portion of the slides that we have available for you. So Albiette really laid out sort of how you can go into a comprehensive planning process leading into actually developing your proposal. And I'm here to tell you sort of the rest of the way there. And the takeaways are really certainly that more planning up front is really helpful and will really bolster and strengthen how you might convey your message. Overall, we know that that's easier said than done. You all are responsible for so much. There's so much that's still going on in the world as we continue to navigate in a pandemic and just globally and broadly. But we hope that these next set of slides really give you some additional tips and ways of thinking about, now that you've kind of done your planning, hopefully as much as you can, how do you really then transition to writing a grant? We recognize too that we've structured this as in like writing your grant, so the actual like a written proposal. But as you may know, the funds are really also broadening creative approaches towards submitting your idea essentially through either slides or video as well. So really it says writing a grant, but it's also broadly saying like, how are you telling your message and sharing your story and really trying to convey that message? So the things here we want to outline for you, similarly in a checklist that we encourage you to think about, are to really try and define your goals, your organization's or partnerships goals and objectives clearly. What is it that you wish to do if you were funded by this grant, or fill in the blank with any other grant or award that you're looking to pursue? What is it explicitly and specifically that you would want to do and carry out and achieve if you receive this funding? The second is, did you demonstrate the needs of the population you serve? And less about needs of your own individual organization, but as you think broadly of the people across the Commonwealth that your organization works with and serves, what needs do they have in this particular realm of funding could support? And linking that back with your goals and objectives. So given their needs and hopefully defining that as clearly as possible, how are your goals and your objectives and what you plan to do really meeting those needs? So really tying those two together. Third is, how are you identifying your measures, metrics, and outcomes? Essentially, who will do your evaluation? Is that really based in-house with the current staff that you have? Or might you look for some other external partners? But how might you go about really trying to capture and evaluating your particular approach? And relatedly, is the next check mark is, have you demonstrated what the overall impact of your work will be? Impact is really broadly defined. If you carry out the set of goals and objectives that you've outlined at the beginning, what do you hope that will change? What do you hope that will improve? And really clearly delineating that. Resources and capacities are also helpful to highlight both the what and the who that you have to do this work. And that can include everything from actual people that you already have on staff, or people that you wish to bring on board if you were to receive funding, as well as the qualifications or the knowledge or the expertise that those people may have or would have to really help you carry out your goals and objectives. And finally, in terms of resources and capacities, are there other or other aspects that you would really bring to bear to do this work? And finally, ensuring that the budget aligns with what you've outlined in your grant application. The budget really tells certainly the financial story of how you would seek to spend that money. And we encourage you to think through and sort of make sure that it matches up with the narrative overall. Next slide, please. So a bit more in terms of other key reminders and aspects. We encourage you to be concise. I certainly know I'm the person that needs to, when I'm drafting something, just get it all out, write it in its sort of non-linear perfect form, and then go back and sort of cut things out. But the encouragement is really to try and in a concise way carry through your message as much as possible. We also ensure that you've answered all the questions. Many RFPs have quite a number of questions. You want to make sure that you're answering all of them thoroughly and comprehensively. We encourage that you think about work you've already done in the past, especially if it would align with whatever you're proposing to do, and to highlight that you're a subject matter expert in X, Y, and Z, whatever it is that you may be thinking about doing. And at the same time, if this is new subject, a new sort of frontier or domain for your organization, we also encourage you to be clear on how you plan to develop that expertise through your planning and to process the impact that you hope to have. Finally, when you're getting to the point where you're nearing the end of drafting, whatever it is you're looking to submit, we have some final recommendations. Be as thorough as you can with reviewing. We encourage that sometimes, if you can, and time permitting, to have someone with a fresh set of eyes looking at it. We all know sort of when we've been spending a lot of time with something, it's hard to see any mistakes or errors or anything that you've left out that someone with a fresh set of eyes, be it an internal or external colleague, can offer. That would just help in those final stages. Finally, make sure that you have the word count, font size, and other required formats sort of matching if they are specified by the funds, and then do a final checklist review in terms of templates and attachments. We have space for Q&A. I wonder for the team, there's actually only 3 more quick slides that are really high level. I wonder if we could just go to those, and then we'll just sort of open it up for Q&A if that works. If you've attended any of our prior webinars or sessions already, these may look familiar, but just to ground you in the types of upcoming application supports that we have available through the rest of this month in June until the June 17th deadline. We essentially have a whole host of optional but wholly welcome to you all sessions that range from office hours to explicit trainings on certain topics, including today's that are coming up. The calendar here is listed and also is on our website, and we welcome you to attend as many of these as would be helpful. You can see that some of them are focused on certain areas or topics, and they really complement the next 2 slides. Actually, if we could share the next one, additional information that's available. So we have a overall website. We could have the next slide. Yep, thank you. That is listed here that you may be very familiar with already. And Albeit has linked the URL in the chat as well. This is what houses all of our information, background on the funds, how to apply, and other resources, including an FAQ or frequently asked questions document. And then just finally is our ongoing inbox or email address that you can email us at any time with any specific questions. So we encourage and welcome you to stay in touch. I think that's the last slide, if I'm right, and we could stop sharing if that's all right. And really now we just want to open it up for any questions that you may have that we can be helpful with on the funds, either anything you've heard so far in today's session or elsewhere. Feel free to either take yourself off mute or add to the chat box, whatever you're comfortable with.
Hi, I have a question.
Please, yeah.
Oh, great. My name is Judy Normandin, and I am a senior grant writer at UTech in Lowell. And, you know, we do work with young adults who are facing multiple barriers to success, dealing with many social determinants of health and root causes. We've done a lot of work in this area. It's primarily people aged 17 to 25 who are involved in the criminal justice system or gang involvement or you know, just other barriers that they are facing. And so I love the approach that you've laid out with the tree and the visual. I love that. For communicating the work and, how we address the social determinants of health and how we kind of combat or disrupt root causes. Are you expecting, or what have you seen in other proposals and other work? Is it I don't know, is it just kind of like a narrative that talks about it, or would you appreciate stories of one to help illustrate the work? Or is it more, statistics based, that would make a stronger case?
I'm happy to start with that and then welcome the team to chime in. Judy, I think we're not limiting the type of information that you have to share to really paint the picture for it. Sounds like, important needs in the community that UTech serves. And so it sounds like you can draw from stories as well as data, and we'd welcome all and any of that, particularly what may be most readily available that you have to share overall. As you asked some really great questions about, sort of what we've seen and perhaps examples you might be interested in. Our website has the first cycle of awards that we gave out, which is total 32 organizations and partnerships. And so we've listed all of those at a high level and brief descriptions of those to give you a sense of what we funded in the past, which isn't absolutely what we have to also fund moving forward, but it gives you an example of sort of the types of approaches. And so I think the important thing when thinking about whether it's statistical data or stories that you've shared, how does that map back to the checklist that you saw, which is telling the story of the need in your population, and then matching that with what UTech specifically plans to do to address those needs. And so really pairing those together, I think would be a compelling way to sort of put forward in your proposal, whether it's in a written or other form.
Okay.
I want to see if others want to add to that. We hope that answers your question, Judy, and let us know.
It does. It's what I kind of expected, but I guess just a follow-up to that, our work encompasses almost every single root cause underneath the tree. And so, I just think that might be too much to try and communicate. And so, I'm thinking it would basically, pick the top, the most relevant, and then maybe address the secondary ones or something like that as a group. I don't know. I'm just trying to anticipate how hard this will be.
Yeah, well, I think just one other initial thought is it is really terrific that your organization is addressing so many of the root causes. it could be apparent, and we're not trying to say that you have to do this, just some ideas.
Yeah.
To think about it is, what you plan to do with the funding, though, could be a more narrow set of things.
True.
Right? So that won't take away from your organization generally addressing many root causes, but I think it could be then thinking about what is it, there's a universe of things you could also do. What are the specific things you would want to do if you were funded through this particular set of money?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is good advice overall, because anything with the word like systemic in it can seem so overwhelming, but to try and just, narrow down to something that's achievable, I think is good. Thank you.
Yeah. Karen, you had another question?
Hi there. First of all, thank you for this presentation today. It's always great to jump on and be reminded of what we should do and learn a little bit more every time we attend something like this. I guess mine's more specific to the application in terms of healthy aging. I am a director of a senior center, and we encompass 3 legs of an umbrella or a chair, whatever you'd like to say, mostly outreach, transportation, and activities. And it seems to me that over the last 5 years that every time I add a program, I need to add 2 more. And so I'm always trying to get ahead of the game and offer what we need for the residents of the community. And that would be the aging portion of the community. So it's senior 60 plus, but we also offer intergenerational services. So I'm looking at this healthy aging grant as a way that I could, like the previous speaker just said, encompass bringing additional services in that almost would be repeating what we're already doing and then expanding upon. So extending our days, extending our weekends, extending the opportunity for those low-income seniors that haven't had the opportunity based on our hours or based on our classes fill up. So I just need to offer more and more. So I guess my question is I sit down and write the grant application for this, do I encompass the overall goal of what I'm looking for, or should I break it down? Again, it kind of touches on the same thing. Do I go specifically towards the transportation aspect, or would it be proper for me to go ahead and just outline everything that I would love, my wish list for the senior center and my wish list for all of the programs and services we want to provide? And then the second part of that is, in writing the grant, would you specify that we follow evidence-based programming with already predefined outcomes, or could we use our own metrics for that? In summary, that's it.
Great questions. I'm happy to start again and then open up to my colleagues. I think for the first part, Karen, that you asked about, strategy around whether to list the broader wish list for the senior center versus not. I think what we would recommend is just reminders that the healthy aging funds, but also the other 2 funding streams available, which is the CHIP community health improvement planning processes and the PSC, or policy systems environmental change approaches. Collectively, they're really looking to fund initiatives that have some of the following criteria. So as you look at your wish list, we would probably encourage to think about those that really align with approaches that will address the root causes of health inequities in your population, racial and health equity approaches overall. And then these funds really seek to go as upstream as possible. So really thinking about the policy systems and environmental approaches that you think can really benefit and support your population. And we know it's confusing because PSC, or policy systems environmental change, is its own funding stream, but they really sort of cross-cut all 3 of the funding streams as well. And so as you look at your wish list, there may be some that really sort of directly or very keenly align with those major focal areas of the funds, and those that may not, you may wish to sort of whittle down that list, but just kind of coming back to the purpose of the funds, they really rest on those particular focus areas. And then in terms of evidence-based or not, we welcome things, approaches or initiatives that are evidence-based, but they also do not have to be. So where you can share how you propose your own metrics in terms of measuring impact, we welcome that overall. Do any of my colleagues have anything else to add to that?
Yes, I would also share too, when you look through the RFP document, we also have specific areas of priority that we talk about as well. So if those are some of the things too that you're looking at in the work that you all are doing, understanding that there's a larger piece that some of your organizations are addressing, really also to think about some of those opportunities, those pieces that are available or that are being prioritized as well in part of the work that in your application piece. I would say too, related to the metrics, oftentimes we've heard a lot of questions related to metrics for folks as far as, whether they should have their own or whether there'll be shared metrics eventually, things of that nature. For this particular stream of funding, it's great to be able to highlight what are some of those key pieces that you're plan on, or that you, in some instances, places where you've had that, those items already that you're collecting, and again, how you expanding upon that or further upstreaming some of that information as well. So I just wanted to add that piece too, as a reminder.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions? Albia, I could turn it back over to you. If you were in the middle of like typing questions, just let us know, certainly, so that we're not cutting you off or ending too prematurely, but I'll turn it over to you, Albia.
Sure. And so we really just want to thank you all for the opportunity to share the workshop space with us. We've allocated an hour for this, but certainly don't want to keep anyone, but we will remain online for you all. So in case there are other questions that might arise or pop up, we'll encourage you to please continue to check out the website to review any of the FAQs that are coming in. We continue to make updates for those as we receive questions via email. So happy to, we're happy to take questions through email as well, but just continue to check out the FAQ for any updates related to any of these as well. Judy, I noticed you came off mute.
I just wanted to say thank you. That's all before I signed off. I really appreciate the way you all present the information, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending. And Kenneth, I noticed that you have your hands raised, so we're happy to take your question.
Yes. One of the things that we were thinking about, we've seen, I guess that one of the outcomes was opening up a gym, and then the outcome will be that the gym will be open every year as a policy change. Because we work across the Commonwealth, we were thinking about trying to do that in certain gateway cities in the Commonwealth. Is that something that we should, really dive deep into, working with communities in those areas to bring about this type of change, or are you looking for something else? I think we was trying to make sure that it wasn't programmatic, but it was actually a systemic change.
And so, Kenneth, can you share a little bit more information? So that these are gyms that you all are looking to do an expansion of the hours for in different communities?
So what we were looking at doing is what we have been hearing from the people that we work with. We mostly work with churches that are minority churches, and right now have been mainly Black churches. Because of COVID, the children haven't been have an opportunity to gather in the right space to allow public, I'm gonna say public health, mental health, to grieve some of the things that they have had to deal with. And so what we were wanting to do is to work with churches to petition either school department or the city, when the school is not in session, that will have an open gym where they will be able to gather in a safe space to play, to learn different things. We want to also bring in counselors to help with mental health, and I guess health food experts to help the kids understand what to eat, but not just the kids, but the families to understand what to eat, because they've been ravaged by COVID-19.
Mhm.
But we don't know if that's like a programmatic thing that you would say that's like a one-off, or is that something that's systematic change that you're looking for?
Right. And so, again, and I'll have my colleagues jump into, is really just thinking about that upstream piece to that. Is this going to be a time? Is there a time stamp to this, a timeline to this? Is this something that is going to result in overall systemic change related to how these the cities will continue to function thereafter? Is really just the piece to think about and to consider as we talk about upstream related to some of these things. And I don't know if any of my colleagues would like to add anything to that.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of you've done some really important, assessing the challenges for your population. So mental health you really pulled out as a challenge, and so just adding on to what Albia was saying, it may help to say, like, mental health is a challenge. What are some of the root causes for the challenges in our community around that? You've already highlighted them, but drilling is deep down below the surface as much as possible, and then how some of the particular approaches upstream, as Albia was saying, would really help that. We've given some examples around programs versus PSC approaches in some of our previous webinars.
Right.
You highlight a very important, as we think about community supports and availability of sort of out of school time and after school time. So not to take away from gyms and other spaces that really provide for that community. I think we would think that the opening of the gym and sort of the programs, the individual programs, those seem more programmatic. And that was illustrated in one of an example that we did, sort of an open gym school night. So it's thinking about how might we make some of the supports more broadly available in a systemic way to your community. I hope that helps with just some additional information.
Thank you.
Jay?
Yes, hi. What was I going to ask? So I realize that these sessions are recorded. Is there somewhere where we can rewatch them?
Yes, the webinar as well as this session will be posted on, is it on the website, or there's going to be a link to as well to see them, I think, on YouTube, but they will be posted on our website.
Okay, cool.
And we've attached the link in the chat before, but I will put that in again.
Fantastic, thank you. And it may be in the application or somewhere, but when is the deadline for applications?
I'm sorry, the deadline?
Mm-hmm.
The deadline is June 17th, 11:59 Eastern time, Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern, and what is, I'm assuming that's the time, what time is it there now?
I'm sorry?
So your Eastern Standard Time, what time? What is the time?
1:51 p.m. currently.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So my name is Jessica, and I am a case manager for the Gardner Emergency Mission Housing. And we have a couple scattered sites where we take in families and we help transition them from immediate emergency homeless situations. And we're looking to expand in a wider direction. And I'm very new at this. I've never written grants before. I do have some underlying things where I am very capable of doing this, and I'm just looking for where you might find some good grants that would be presenting to the agency that we work with and the public.
So, great question. We have, within HRIA, there are a few grant opportunities that we usually do release to communities throughout. However, finding grants, it's one of those things that have always been difficult. So networking has been one of the primary ways in which I've done that in the past through my experience, attending a variety of different events, meeting people, and just hearing about some of the different opportunities that they have coming up. There are some listservs as well that you can apply for, but I would say generally speaking, check out the state websites to see if there are any opportunities. There are some of the federal websites as well that post announcements on a regular basis to find those opportunities. And check out your local health departments as well as your city or town. In some places, in some instances, they've done that too. In particular, there have been a lot of those federal funds that came down to communities. So there are some opportunities related to that. Still a lot of COVID related grant opportunities of varying size that you can check out as well. There are some places too that you can pay to get grant opportunities. I never did those, but really it is a time intensive piece to kind of add some time to do those research as well. But if you, we do on our listserv, if you've already put your information for it, whenever funding opportunities, mostly funds related, we will share that and that information of those upcoming grant opportunities to you. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Jen. Also to think foundations, a lot of the big name Kellogg's, those types of Kaiser, those types of places, they sometimes to a lot of the foundations, they have grant opportunities that come through on a regular cycle. So you may certainly want to look at those as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you all for all of your time. This was really well put together and it was a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us. And again, please feel free to email us with any additional questions that you have. We also do have some upcoming office hours that are really just open to any general questions that you may have related to the funds, in addition to some of the other office hours that we in workshops that will address more specific pieces to the funds application. But thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. You too.